Something big seems to be happening for Ubisoft, but it's not great news. We got updates on major 2025 games. I also want to touch on the PS6. We got a leak for that, and I don't think we should worry about the price, and way more gaming news to go over. So sit back and let's go. Let's start with something pretty exciting if done well. Avatar: The Last Airbender is getting a AAA RPG from Saber Interactive and Paramount Game Studios. Like, it's kinda wild that first this franchise did not get the video game love it deserves. The most recent attempt was Quest for Balance, a retelling of the familiar story that, yes, looks really bad, and got a 40 and a 30 from people who took the time to review it. Well, seems like they're finally going to invest the time and money to make a good game, as they call it the biggest video game in franchise history. Although again, looking at all the games that this franchise has gotten so far, that doesn't mean a lot. Although Saber as a developer does give me hope, as they just put out Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, that is a really solid title and a true love letter for the fans. Like, an Avatar game with that fidelity could be really awesome. Interesting, by the way, that they are going to tell a completely new story with an all-new, never-before-seen avatar that takes place thousands of years in the past, which I like. It gives them more freedom to make like a really game-centric story. So they note that we can expect to be immersed in a vibrant world, master all 4 elements, engage in dynamic combat alongside companions, and experience the challenges and decisions that come with being the keeper of the balance in the world. Like, if they can pull this off, it can be a Hogwarts Legacy moment for sure. Probably not as big, but this will easily sell millions of copies if it truly lets us like get lost in this amazing world. No mention of open world, by the way, so it's likely more linear with maybe some open levels that we can explore. I will of course keep you posted here. Let me know if you would play a AAA RPG in the Avatar universe in the comments down below. We got the first leak about the PlayStation 6. Yes, it probably won't be out for another 4 years, as Microsoft expected the PS6 to launch in 2028. We learned thanks to court documents submitted during the Activision Blizzard trial. Like, makes sense having the PS5 Pro now during the halfway point of the generation, but after the $700 and €800 price point for that system, people are now scared that the PS6 will be around that price as well. So we now have a leak by Kepler L2, who has been right about previous hardware related things. Still take it with a grain of salt, but it does seem like Sony is looking at 2 SoCs, system on a chip, for the next generation. So basically 2 SKUs, like he doesn't know if it's a Series S X situation or a home console and handheld, but probably one of them will be affordable at least. Like, we have to remember that it's not in Sony's best interest to make their next console super expensive. In previous generations, the console was sold at a loss because they just wanted you to get one into your living room, because then you would spend money on games and other things, and Sony could make a profit on that. Like, on average, per PS5 owner, they made $731 in the first 4 years of the PS5 launch, while on PS4 in that same time window it was $580. So that's a nice jump, but yeah, it also means that if a $700 PS6 means way less people will buy it and stick with the PS5, then maybe game less, stop their PS Plus subscription. Like, that's a way worse scenario for Sony than getting less money on the hardware. So I think the PlayStation 6 will likely start at $500. That seems to be the sweet spot, but then without a disc drive. So it's still a $100 jump from the digital PS5. Now, I still think there will be a separate disc drive that you can buy if you want, but for the PS6, it will just not be in the box anymore. I think that's a trend that the PS5 Pro did start. And again, they seem to be doing 2 versions. I don't think going for a more cheaper model that is less powerful will be the way forward for Sony, because that would be really weird. Is the PS5 Pro then more powerful than the standard PS6? No, I think if they are going for 2 SKUs, are going to launch a more powerful PS6 Pro at launch. Now, the handheld thing is interesting. I totally think they will do that at some point, looking at the success of the Switch, the Steam Deck, and of course their own Portal, but the Portal is already $200, so I really think if they're gonna make a handheld, it's gonna be way more expensive than the base console. So that's why I don't think it makes sense to have a PS6 handheld at launch. Like, that will be more than $1,000. Like, that doesn't make sense. But having a handheld at one point that runs PS5 games I do think would be kinda cool, but maybe near the end of the life cycle, and it will still be quite expensive. They at least don't want to be in a Vita situation again where they have to make specific games only for that handheld. Curious to hear what you think in the comments down below, but yeah, overall I don't think we should worry that the PlayStation 6 base model will be $700. Like, there's really no good reason for Sony to do that. It doesn't make sense. Still though, with the inflation and the prices of the components rising up, it will likely mean that a $500 PS6 can't be that big of a jump. Interesting times. Maybe they will use AI in new and interesting ways. We will see. Let's look at some PS5 games for now and that big Ubisoft leak that we have to go over. Of course, if you like these big gaming news roundup videos, leave a like. That would really help me out. And subscribe, because we post one of these every Sunday. Yeah, we have to talk about Ubisoft again, as we got some big leaks. Bloomberg namely reports that Tencent and the Guillemot family might buy out the company, meaning that it will go private. As I told you before in previous Sunday videos, the stock price hit a 10-year low recently, and it dropped even lower thanks to the Assassin's Creed Shadows delay. They lost around the 80% of their value in the last 5 years, so what they might do now is buy all the stocks from other investors, which again is a great time to do so because the price per stock is very low, and then take the company private. Meaning that outside people cannot invest in Ubisoft anymore or have any say in the direction, so Ubisoft does not have to take accountability, they don't have to publicly share their financials anymore, so they could also make some big changes. Tencent, of course, the huge Chinese gaming publisher, already owns 9.2% of Ubisoft, while the Guillemot family owns 20.5% right now. But worth noting is that Tencent also owns 49.9% of the company of the Guillemot family, so they're really intertwined. Like, they have to look at what the best options are. Now, Bloomberg notes that considerations are at an early stage and there's no certainty that it will actually lead to a transaction, and Tencent and the Guillemot family are also considering other alternatives, according to the people. So maybe they will sell the whole thing to someone else, or maybe sell particular aspects, IP. Like, we have to wait and see, but it really seems like something will be happening. And the sad reality of consolidation is, of course, that this will probably lead to many layoffs. Like, I noted this on Twitter, and Tom Henderson, with many sources inside Ubisoft, who has been reporting a lot of the news, agrees, saying that he would not be surprised to see a significant reduction of 30 to 40%. I really hope that's not true. Like, that would be crazy and really bad for the industry, but something has to happen, and Ubisoft right now has 19,000 plus people working for them, so with a reduction like that, they would still have around the same amount of people, or a little bit more actually than EA and Take-Two, while those publishers make way more money. And what we see with those companies is that their focus is really clear. Like, they got a few big franchises, live service games that they put a heavy focus on, and then maybe they launch 1 or 2 other titles per year next to that. Ubisoft has been kinda all over the place with Skull and Bones, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, X-Defiant, Rogue Prince of Persia, remember that, they also put that out, Star Wars Outlaws, DLCs for Avatar. These all came out this year and they all underperformed. So I can see them look at their whole operation and be like, okay, why bother with these titles? Let's just focus on the most important series, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry and the Tom Clancy games, and not bother with anything else. So basically all the heads inside the company are towards the same direction. But yeah, that does mean likely that all the teams that are not working on those big franchises likely have to go. And I hope I'm wrong, but it will be very interesting to see what happens. Again, something will likely change because it can't go on for much longer. Your theories are more than welcome, of course, in the comments down below. I will keep you up to date here. We got many quick shots this week. News stories I will go over quickly. For one, Silent Hill 2 remake is way better than people expected. It sits at an 87 at the time of recording, which is like a nice redemption arc for Blooper Team that did not set the world on fire with their previous game, The Medium. Now, I'm not really into horror games myself, but I'm happy for everyone who was looking forward to this. Like, I like the more narrative-based cabin in the woods style horror titles like Until Dawn, and it also got a PS5 version and PC version right now. Although in stark contrast, there are no reviews for that at the time of this recording. Now, I did see this tweet from Shirako saying that it runs worse than the original and has a lot more bugs and crashes. so maybe stay clear from that one until they fix it. But there is something interesting going on with this new release, as they seemingly included a new ending and choices with even hints to a sequel, and Special Nick is saying that Firesprite, the Sony-owned studio, is making that sequel. And that's no surprise looking at job listings where they note that they are working on a huge, highly ambitious, branching AAA project that takes atmosphere, storytelling, player agency, and narrative firmly into groundbreaking territory. And yeah, it is for a dark horror game, so likely the sequel to Until Dawn. And now, of course, a big sequel that was just announced is Ghost of Yotei, and we learned a bit more, namely that the open world will be less repetitive than Tsushima's. And this is great news, as while I liked going after the foxes and cutting the bamboo for the first and second time, it was less exciting later on, so having less of like a similar activity but more unique ones instead could be kinda cool, and something we already did kinda see in the Icky Island DLC. Now maybe you already saw it, but if you want to learn everything about the game, totally check out our big trailer breakdown via the link in the video description. The game is out in 2025, just like Death Stranding 2. Kojima once again confirmed that yeah, it should be out next year, and he of course showed that photo mode. I already showed it a bit in the previous Sunday video, but we have to talk a bit more about it in depth because it looks wild. Like the characters are constantly doing different poses, so you can have way more realistic photos instead of just a few static poses, and you can put characters in positions they otherwise would not be in, and like pose in front of vehicles and stuff. I'm really curious because we've seen that over and over again, that photo modes like add new things, and then other photo modes in other games add those things as well. Is this going to be a thing moving forward, that we can have more poses like this? Or is it just something that will just stay in this Kojima game? Because it seems like quite a lot of effort and motion capture money for something that not a lot of people will use. I can see maybe Naughty Dog do it for the next game, or Guerrilla for Horizon. And speaking of which, if you watch this channel for a while, then you know that the Horizon Online game is Guerrilla's next major project, and that a third mainline series entry starring Aloy is ways off. And yes, I'm reading a title out loud because this was news the last week, and now that Jason Schreier noted this on a podcast as well. Like I always point to the online game director's LinkedIn, who has been working on this project for almost 7 years, and the development time of the original Horizon was also 7 years. And yeah, many Forbidden West single-player developers have joined the online team after Forbidden West, so yeah, that is the main focus right now. We have to see it soon, and that then also means that it will be out relatively fast afterwards, because that's how Sony does things these days. I would not be surprised if we're looking at early 2026 or something like that. But yeah, that does mean that Horizon 3 is 2029, I think. Like first year of the PS6 maybe, but then it will probably be cross-gen with PS5. It's going to be a long time though, for sure. This coming week I will have a new Assassin's Creed video for you, as we got some interesting news to discuss, so it should be fun. There are also games coming out, of course, quite a lot that I know people are excited for, like Silent Hill 2, the Diablo 4 DLC, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and Metaphor ReFantasio. We'll of course have a big news roundup like this up at the end of the week, so just subscribe if you haven't already to not miss it. A like would really help me out, and check out our video on Crimson Desert, as we played that recently. It's shaping up really well, so check that video out if you haven't already. I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.